Captain Alan Parker stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Fleet ship Horizon. His hands were tight fists at his sides. On the large screen in front of him, 7 alien faces looked back. These were the members of the Galactic Council Majors, the Vexari, Tholians, Quarians, Lasari, Neph, Xandoth, and Meridians. They had just voted on Earth's request to join their ranks. The Council has decided that humans are too unpredictable and not advanced enough to become a major, said Counselor Jivik, the Vexari with blue scales and 4 eyes. Your species will stay as probationary members for another 50 standard cycles. 50 cycles meant almost 70 Earth years, 70 more years where humans couldn't expand freely, couldn't access advanced technology, and couldn't trade on the best routes. Parker felt his jaw tighten. Behind Parker stood his first officer, Lieutenant Samantha Wells, and the diplomatic advisor, Greg Mitchell. Both looked as unhappy as Parker felt. This is the 3rd time we've asked in 20 years, Mitchell whispered. They're keeping us down on purpose. Parker knew this was true. The powerful aliens feared how quickly humans were advancing. In just 200 years since finding faster-than-light travel, humans had settled 17 star systems. They had created technologies that took other species thousands of years to develop. The Council Majors had nothing to gain by letting humans join their elite group. We understand your decision, Parker said to the aliens, keeping his voice level even though anger burned inside him. Earth will respect the Council's wisdom. The screen went dark. Parker turned to his crew. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. 3 days later, Parker stood in a large underground room beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth. Admiral Linda Hayes had called together the best military minds and scientists. They sat around a long table in the cold concrete room. The Council has made their position clear, Hayes said. She was a tall woman with gray hair and a face that showed she'd fought many battles. They will never accept us as equals. Why should we care? Asked Major John Rivera, the head of Special Operations. We're doing fine on our own. Dr. Peter Morgan, Earth's leading physicist, shook his head. We're not. The restrictions are hurting us more each year. The new colony on Titan's Hope can't get the medicine they need because it's on a restricted trade route. Our ships can't use the main jump gates without paying fees we can barely afford. And it's getting worse, added Olivia Carter, who studied alien cultures. The Vexari are pushing for even tighter controls on human expansion. They want to limit us to our current 17 systems. Admiral Hayes nodded. Exactly. The Council Majors have decided to keep us as second-class citizens of the galaxy forever, but they've made a mistake. What's that? Parker asked. They think we'll just accept it. Hayes pressed a button and a hologram appeared over the table. It showed designs for something massive. This is Project Phoenix. We've been working on it in secret for 3 years. Now we're going to speed things up. Dr. Morgan stood and pointed to parts of the design. These are energy collectors that can harness power in ways the Council thinks is impossible for our tech level. And these are quantum communicators that can bypass their monitored networks. And this, Hayes said, pointing to another part, is a new drive system that doesn't need their jump gates. We can go anywhere without them knowing or controlling us. Won't they detect this? Wells asked. Not if we build it right, Morgan said. And not if we hide it well. Hayes looked around the table, meeting each person's eyes. I want to be clear. This isn't about starting a war. This is about forcing them to see us as equals. But if they push us, we'll be ready, Parker finished. Hayes nodded. Captain Parker, you'll oversee the military side of Phoenix. Dr. Morgan will handle the scientific development. Ms. Carter will work on finding allies among the minor species who are also tired of the Major's control. The minor species might help us? Parker asked. Carter nodded. The Ardani have been under Council control for 800 years, the Telosians for over 1,000. They're as frustrated as we are, maybe more. How long will this take? Wells asked. We've already been working in secret for 3 years, Hayes said. With full focus and resources, we can be ready in 5 more. The Council expects us to spend the next 70 years begging for their approval. Instead, we'll spend 5 years making sure they regret their decision. 6 months later, Parker stood on a new ship. It wasn't as big as the Horizon, but it was special. The EDF Defiance was being built in secret, deep in an asteroid field where Council sensors couldn't detect it. It would be the first ship with the new Phoenix technology. "How's it coming?" Parker asked Susan Clark, the lead engineer. "Better than expected," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "The new shield system works perfectly. It can stop anything the Council ships can fire at us, and the drive is almost ready." "And they can't detect it?" "No way," Clark said with a smile. "We're using completely different principles than what they think we have. It's like they're watching for smoke signals while we're building a radio." On the far side of human space, Dr. Morgan supervised construction on Titan's Hope. The colony world looked like it was building normal defense systems, but they were actually the first part of the Phoenix network. "Power linkage is stable," reported a young engineer named Kyle Adams. "We can channel energy at 40% efficiency now." "Good," Morgan said. "We need to reach 60% before it's fully operational, but we're ahead of schedule." Meanwhile, on the Ardani homeworld, Olivia Carter sat across from the Ardani Prime Minister. The Ardani looked almost human except for their golden skin and extra fingers. "You understand what we're proposing?" Carter asked. The Prime Minister nodded slowly. "A new alliance, not controlled by the Council majors. It is risky." "Everything worth doing is," Carter said. "The majors have controlled space for too long. They keep the best technology for themselves and make sure we can never catch up. And if they attack when you reveal yourselves?" "We'll be ready," Carter said. "But we don't want war. We want respect." Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes looked at the reports coming in from all parts of Project Phoenix. Everything was moving forward, some parts even faster than planned. Humans were good at innovation when their backs were against the wall. "They should have accepted us," she said to herself as she studied the plans. "Now they'll wish they had." In 5 years, the Galactic Council majors would learn a lesson about humans. They would learn that humans don't stay down when pushed. They come back stronger, smarter, and more determined. The Council had made their decision. Soon, they would regret it. 6 years passed since the Galactic Council rejected humanity. On the distant colony world of Titan's Hope, Dr. Peter Morgan wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked at the massive structures rising from the planet's surface. To anyone watching, from space they appeared to be simple defense systems. The Council majors would expect nothing more from a human colony. But they were wrong. "Power synchronization at 98%, called engineer Susan Clark from her station. She had dark circles under her eyes from working 3 days straight. "Quantum fluctuation stabilizers are holding steady." Morgan nodded and turned to Colonel Eric Rodriguez, who stood nearby in his crisp military uniform. Rodriguez had been assigned to oversee the military aspects of the project on Titan's Hope. "Are we sure the Council won't detect what we're really doing here?" Rodriguez asked, his voice low. "The Quarians have surveillance satellites that scan this sector once every 14 days, Morgan replied. "But they only look for energy patterns they understand." "What we're doing here?" He smiled. "Well, they wouldn't even know what to look for. What they were doing was building the main hub of the Phoenix Array, a system that could create stable wormholes in space. These wormholes would let human ships travel instantly between distant points without using the Council-controlled jump gates." "Final power cell installation complete," called Kyle Adams, a young engineer who had proved remarkably talented. "All 27 cells are now online." Morgan checked the readings on his tablet. "Perfect. We'll begin the first small-scale test tomorrow." Back on Earth, Admiral Linda Hayes sat in her underground office reviewing reports from throughout human space. Project Phoenix was happening across all 17 human colonies at once. Each colony was building part of the network that would soon free humanity from Council control. Her communication screen lit up with an incoming message from Olivia Carter. Carter's face appeared, looking tired but excited. "Good news, Admiral," Carter said. "The Ardani Council has officially agreed to join our alliance. That makes 14 minor species now." Hayes smiled. This was a major victory. Under Carter's leadership, humans had been building relationships with other species who suffered under the Council majors' unfair rules. The Ardani were particularly important because their territory bordered Vexari space. Excellent work, Hayes said. Have they agreed to install the relay stations? Carter nodded. Yes. Their engineers are already working with our team. They're eager to help, especially after the Vexari increased their trading taxes again last month. And what about the Telosians? Hayes asked. Still cautious, Carter admitted. But they're watching the Ardani closely. If nothing goes wrong with the Ardani installation, I think they'll join us too. Good. Keep me updated. In the asteroid belt of the Proxima system, far from Council monitoring stations, Captain Alan Parker walked through the nearly finished EDF Defiance. The ship looked small compared to Council vessels, but size could be deceiving. Shield testing complete, sir, reported Lieutenant Samantha Wells as she joined him on the bridge. 100% absorption of all known Council weapon types. Parker nodded with satisfaction. And the drive system? Engineer Clark's design works perfectly, Wells said with a smile. We can achieve speeds 3 times faster than any Council ship, and the best part is we don't leave the normal energy trail they look for. The bridge crew was running final systems checks. Most were young officers who had been carefully selected for the project. They knew they were part of something that would change humanity's future forever. Sir, called Communications Officer Ben Wilson. Incoming secure message from Admiral Hayes. Put it through to my ready room, Parker ordered. In the small office, off the main bridge, Parker activated the secure screen. Hayes appeared, looking serious as always. Captain, how close is the Defiance to being combat ready? She asked without greeting. We're at 93%, Admiral. 2 more weeks, and we'll be fully operational. You have 1 week, Hayes said. The Council is moving up their timetable. The Tholians have proposed new restrictions on human expansion. If approved, we won't be allowed to settle any new systems for the next 100 cycles. Parker felt cold anger rise in him. 100 cycles? That's almost 140 Earth years, Hayes finished. Yes, they're not just keeping us down anymore. They're trying to make sure we never rise. We'll be ready, Parker promised. What about the other ships? 10 more vessels like the Defiance were being built in secret locations. Together, they would form the core of Earth's new fleet. They're accelerating production too, Hayes said. And Morgan reports the first Phoenix relay will be ready for testing in 3 days. After the call ended, Parker returned to the bridge. Listen up, everyone, he announced. We're moving up our schedule. Full combat readiness in 7 days. The crew snapped to attention. They knew what was at stake. On the Ardani homeworld, Olivia Carter watched as human engineers worked alongside Ardani technicians to install a Phoenix relay station. The device was much smaller than the main array on Titan's Hope, but it served a crucial purpose in the network. The Ardani Prime Minister stood beside her. My people are nervous, she admitted. If the Council discovers what we're doing, they won't, Carter assured her. And even if they suspected something, they'd look to human worlds first. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late for them to stop it. And you're certain your technology works? The Prime Minister asked. Absolutely certain, Carter said. Dr. Morgan is the most brilliant physicist in human space. His designs have been tested thoroughly. What she didn't mention was that the tests had all been simulations. The actual Phoenix network had never been activated at full power. There was risk involved, but humanity had no choice. Meanwhile, in the Tholian sector, a Council patrol ship detected unusual energy readings coming from an asteroid field. The captain sent a report to Tholian Command, noting that the readings were faint but strange. The report was filed and forgotten as unimportant. The Tholians, like all Council majors, believed humans were too primitive to pose any real threat. They would soon learn how wrong they were. Back on Titan's Hope, Dr. Morgan watched the final power cell come online. The massive Phoenix array hummed with energy, ready for its first real test. Begin primary sequence, Morgan ordered. Engineers worked at their stations, starting the complex process that would create a small controlled wormhole between Titan's Hope and Earth. Power levels stable, reported Susan Clark. Quantum field, forming. A shimmering point of light appeared between the array's main collectors. It grew slowly, expanding into a swirling portal about 3 meters wide. "We have connection with Earth Relay," Kyle Adams announced, his voice excited. "Signal is strong and clear." Morgan let out the breath he'd been holding. "Send the test. Probe through." A small robotic probe entered the portal and vanished. Seconds later, confirmation came from Earth. The probe had arrived perfectly intact. Morgan smiled. "The Phoenix has risen," he said quietly. "And soon, the whole galaxy will know it." The grand meeting hall on Meridian Prime was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Tall windows showed the planet's 3 moons hanging in the pink sky. The Galactic Trade Summit happened once every 5 years. All major and minor species sent delegates to discuss trade routes, tariffs, and regulations. Karen Foster led the small human delegation. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Foster had been chosen carefully for this mission. She looked calm and respectful, but inside she felt like she might explode from excitement. Today, everything would change. The 7 council majors sat on a raised platform at the front of the hall. The Vixari High Counselor Živik stood to speak, his blue scales shining under the bright lights. "We welcome all species to this important summit," Živik said. "Our first order of business concerns adjustments to human trade permissions." Foster watched as Živik displayed a star map showing human space. Red lines appeared marking new restrictions on where human ships could travel. Due to concerns about human expansion rates, the council majors have agreed to implement additional oversight. Živik continued. "Human vessels will now require council approval before entering these marked sectors." Murmurs spread through the room. The new restrictions would cut off humans from nearly a third of their current trade routes. Many minor species looked uncomfortable. They knew such rules could be applied to them next. Foster stood up. "Counselor Živik, may I address the summit before you continue?" Živik looked annoyed at the interruption but nodded. "You may speak briefly, Human Foster." Foster walked to the center of the hall. She carried a small device in her hand. "Thank you, Counselor. Before these new restrictions are finalized, my government has asked me to make an announcement to the gathered species." She pressed a button on the device. A large hologram appeared above her head, showing a view of space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, 20 sleek ships appeared where empty space had been a second before. The ships were clearly human in design, but unlike any human vessels the Council had seen before. "As of 0600 Earth Standard Time today," Foster said clearly, "the human government has activated the Phoenix network." Confusion filled the hall. The hologram changed to show another view of space, then another, then another. In each one, human ships were appearing near key locations throughout Council space. At the same time, 7 more holograms showed human colony worlds suddenly covered by shimmering energy shields. "What is the meaning of this?" the Lasari Counselor Telvik demanded, standing up. His long tentacles waved in agitation. "These technologies are far beyond your approved development level." "That's exactly the point, Counselor," Foster replied calmly. "We no longer recognize the Council's authority to approve or restrict our technological development." Chaos erupted in the hall. Many delegates stood up, shouting questions or protests. The Tholian Counselor, a crystalline being named Kraz, slammed a sharp limb on the table. "This is an act of war," Kraz shouted. "Humans have violated the most basic rules of galactic order." Foster raised her hands. "No, Counselor, this is not a declaration of war. This is a declaration of independence. We have not attacked anyone. We have simply revealed that your decision to exclude us has been rendered meaningless." The hologram changed again. This time it showed small stations activating throughout space. As each one powered up, a swirling portal of energy formed nearby, a stable wormhole connecting directly to human space. "These Phoenix relays create instant travel corridors," Foster explained. "We no longer need your jump gates to move through space. We no longer need your permission to trade with willing partners." The Quarian Counselor, a small being with 6 eyes, leaned forward. "How is this possible? Our monitoring systems detected nothing." Because you only monitor for technologies you understand, Foster said. Humans have been developing in directions you never considered. In the back of the hall, representatives from the minor species watched with growing excitement. Many of them knew parts of the human plan, but now they were seeing the full scale of it. Some exchanged knowing looks. The balance of power was shifting before their eyes. The Meridian Counselor, a tall being with feathered skin, rose slowly. Unlike the others, she seemed more curious than angry. "How many of these Phoenix relays have you deployed?" she asked. "Enough," Foster answered simply, "and more are being activated each day. With help from others, I suspect," the Meridian said, looking at the minor species representatives. Foster didn't confirm or deny this. Instead, she pressed another button on her device. A new image appeared, showing Captain Alan Parker on the bridge of the EDF Defiance. "This is Captain Parker of the Earth Defense Fleet," Parker said. His voice was firm and clear. "I want to assure all species that our ships have strict orders not to fire first. We seek peaceful relations with all. However, we will defend ourselves if attacked." As if to emphasize his point, the hologram showed the Defiance's advanced shield system activating. The ship was surrounded by a shimmering field of energy unlike anything the Council had seen before. Counselor Zivik stood again, struggling to regain control of the meeting. "This summit will adjourn for 1 hour while the Council majors discuss this situation." As the majors filed out, Foster was approached by several minor species representatives. The Ardani Prime Minister clasped Foster's hand. "It worked," she whispered. "The Phoenix network actually worked. Just as Dr. Morgan promised," Foster replied with a smile. "Your relay stations are fully operational. Your ships can use them whenever you wish." The Telosian ambassador, who had been hesitant to join the Human Alliance, now looked eager. "We would like to discuss installing relay stations in our system as well," he said quietly. While the delegates talked excitedly, out in space, the new reality was already taking shape. The EDF Defiance and its sister ships moved into defensive positions around key human interests. They didn't threaten or harass Council vessels, but they made their presence known. On Titan's Hope, Dr. Peter Morgan watched the data flowing in from all parts of the Phoenix network. Every relay was functioning perfectly. The main array was operating at full power, creating and maintaining multiple wormholes simultaneously. "We did it," Susan Clark said, standing beside him. "They can't put us back in the box now." Morgan nodded. "No, they can't. But this is just the beginning. The hard part comes next." "What's that?" asked Kyle Adams. "Convincing the Council majors to accept the new reality without starting a war," Morgan replied. "Some of them won't give up control easily." Back at the summit, the Council majors returned to the hall. Their expressions showed they were divided on how to respond. Counselor Zivik spoke first. "The Council demands an immediate deactivation of all unauthorized human technology until a full investigation can be conducted." Foster shook her head. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Counselor. The Phoenix network is now essential to human security and commerce. We are willing to discuss new agreements as equals, but we will not return to our previous restricted status." The Tholian Counselor Kraz rose. "Then you leave us no choice. The Tholian hegemony will not recognize this illegal human action. We will take steps to protect galactic order." Everyone in the room knew what that meant. The Tholians were threatening military action. Foster remained calm. "We hope the Tholians will reconsider. War would benefit no one." As the summit dissolved into arguing factions, messages were already being sent to fleets throughout the galaxy. The Council majors were divided. Some wanted to crush the human rebellion immediately, while others counseled caution. Aboard the Defiance, Captain Parker received word of the Tholian threat. "Alert all ships," he ordered. "Maintain defensive positions, but be ready. The Tholians rarely make empty threats." Lieutenant Wells looked at the tactical display showing Council ships beginning to move. "Do you think they'll really attack us, sir?" Parker watched the moving dots on the screen. "Some of them will try, They've controlled the galaxy too long to give up without a fight. The Phoenix had risen. Now came the fire. The days following the trade summit were filled with frantic activity across the galaxy. On the Tholian homeworld, military commanders prepared their warships for action. The crystalline beings believed in order above all else, and to them, the humans had created dangerous disorder. The human colonies must be blockaded immediately, Supreme Commander Vrit ordered during an emergency meeting. Their ships must be stopped from using these illegal wormholes. The Tholian warfleet was mighty, with hundreds of ships that had enforced council rules for centuries. 3 of these warships were sent to the human colony of New Montana as a first step. The Tholians expected an easy victory, a show of force to remind humans of their place. On New Montana, Colony Governor Frank Miller received warning of the approaching Tholian ships. He contacted Earth immediately. 3 Tholian warships will reach us in 6 hours, he reported to Admiral Hayes. They're demanding we shut down our Phoenix relay station. Hayes' face on the screen looked serious but calm. Activate your planetary shields, Governor. Help is already on the way. True to her word, the EDF Defiance appeared through a Phoenix wormhole just as the Tholian ships reached New Montana. Captain Parker stood on the bridge watching the Tholian vessels approach. They're charging weapons, Lieutenant Wells reported from her station. Shields at full power, Parker ordered. Do not fire unless fired upon. The Tholian ships opened fire. Bright beams of energy struck the Defiance's shields, but instead of damaging the ship, the energy seemed to be absorbed. The shields glowed brightly for a moment, then returned to normal. Shields holding at 100%, Wells said, sounding slightly surprised even though they had tested this technology. The Tholians fired again, this time targeting the colony's surface, but a massive shield had formed over the main settlement, protecting it completely. They're hailing us, Communications Officer Ben Wilson announced. The Tholian commander appeared on screen. His crystalline form glittered with anger. Your resistance is pointless, humans. Surrender now or face destruction. We have not attacked you, Parker replied calmly. We're merely defending our colony. I suggest you withdraw and avoid unnecessary conflict. The Tholian commander didn't respond. Instead, all 3 Tholian ships moved to surround the Defiance. They're preparing to use their web, Wells warned. The Tholian web was a special weapon that could trap and crush enemy ships. Parker nodded. Activate the neural disruptor, target. They're engineering sections only. The neural disruptor was another new human weapon. Instead of destroying enemy ships, it sent out waves of energy that temporarily disabled their systems without harming the crews. Pulses of blue light shot out from the Defiance, hitting each Tholian ship in turn. The effect was immediate. The Tholian vessels went dark, drifting in space with only emergency power. All 3 targets neutralized, Wells reported. Their main systems will be offline for approximately 6 hours. Parker opened a channel to the lead Tholian ship. Your vessels will regain power shortly. No permanent damage has been done. We suggest you return to Tholian space and inform your leaders that attacking human colonies is not advisable. Within hours, news of the encounter spread throughout the galaxy. The mighty Tholian ships had been disabled without being destroyed, a show of both strength and restraint by the humans. Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes received reports from other sectors. The Xandoth, allies of the Tholians, had also dispatched warships to several locations, but the Meridians and Neph were urging caution, suggesting diplomatic talks instead of military action. The Council is splitting into factions, Hayes told her advisors. Just as we predicted. What about the Vexari? Asked Greg Mitchell, who had helped plan the diplomatic strategy. They've been our strongest opponents. They're watching and waiting, Hayes said. They want to see how the Tholians fare before committing themselves. Meanwhile, the Quarians and Lasari had already sent private messages to Earth, suggesting separate negotiations. They recognized the new balance of power more quickly than the others. On the Ardani homeworld, Olivia Carter met with representatives from 17 minor species. Word of the Tholian defeat had energized them. The humans have shown it's possible to stand up to the Council majors. the Telosian ambassador said, his long fingers tapping excitedly on the table. For centuries we've been told resistance was futile. And they didn't destroy the Tholian ships, noted the Voltar representative, a stocky being with metallic skin. They could have, but they chose not to. Carter nodded. Humans don't want war. We want equality. The alliance was growing stronger by the hour. More minor species were requesting Phoenix relay stations in their systems, seeing them as protection against Council control. The real test came 3 days later. Tholian High Command, enraged by their defeat at New Montana, sent a full battle fleet to the Sol system, Earth's home. 30 warships emerged from jump gates near Jupiter, the largest force the Tholians had deployed in over a century. Admiral Hayes stood in Earth's Defense Command Center, watching the approaching fleet on the main screen. Status of our defenses? Earth. Shield at full power, reported a young officer. The 7th Fleet is in position and we have support from Allied ships. Indeed, it wasn't just human vessels facing the Tholians. Ships from 12 minor species had arrived through Phoenix wormholes to help defend Earth. They formed a protective line alongside the human 7th Fleet. Hayes opened a channel to the Tholian fleet commander. This is Admiral Linda Hayes of Earth Defense. Your presence in our system is an act of aggression. We request you withdraw immediately. The Tholian commander's harsh voice came through. You have violated Council law. You will disable all Phoenix technology and surrender your ships for inspection. There will be no negotiation. Hayes sighed. I'm sorry you feel that way. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend our home. The Tholian fleet opened fire. Beams of energy struck the human and allied shields. Just as with the Defiance at New Montana, the shields absorbed the attacks without failing. Return fire, Hayes ordered. Neural disruptors only, minimal damage. The human ships fired their blue pulses. The allied ships, now equipped with similar technology, did the same. Across the Tholian fleet, ships began to lose power, their weapons and engines shutting down. But the Tholians had brought too many ships. Some got through, reaching Earth orbit where they faced the planet's main shield. They fired everything they had. The shield glowed brightly under the assault, but held firm. Second wave of neural disruptors, Hayes commanded. Within minutes, the entire Tholian battle fleet was drifting powerless in space. Not a single ship had been destroyed. Not a single life had been lost. Hayes reopened the channel to the Tholian commander. Your ships will regain power within 6 hours. When they do, I suggest you return to Tholian space. Earth is open to peaceful relations, but we will not surrender our independence. News of the Tholian defeat spread quickly. The largest battle fleet in Tholian history had been neutralized without a single casualty. The message was clear. Humanity could not be forced back under Council control. On the Vexari homeworld, High Counselor Zivik called an emergency session of the full Council. We must face reality, he told the gathered representatives. The humans have technology we cannot counter. Worse, they're sharing it with the minor species. We should strike with our combined forces before more join them, urged the Tholian representative. The Meridian counselor shook her head. And risk the same defeat? No, we must negotiate. The Council Major's unified front was crumbling. After centuries of unchallenged power, they faced a choice: adapt to a new reality or risk losing everything. On the Defiance, Captain Parker watched reports come in from across the galaxy. The Quarians are calling for talks, he told his crew. The Meridians and Neff too. And the Tholians? Asked Wells. Parker smiled slightly. Still angry, but their ships are in no condition to show it. The Phoenix had not just risen. It had soared. 3 months after what people now called the Phoenix Revelation, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on neutral ground. The massive space station Unity had been built specifically for this historic meeting. It floated in deep space far from any single species' territory. For the first time in galactic history, minor species had equal seats at the table with the former Council Majors. The large circular meeting room held delegates from over 30 different worlds. The 7 former majors sat together, though they no longer presented a unified front. Dr. Peter Morgan, now serving as Earth's main representative, stood to address the gathering. He had been chosen for his calm nature and deep understanding of the technologies that had changed everything. "Thank you all for coming to this historic summit," Morgan began. 3 months ago, the galaxy discovered that humans had developed beyond the limits imposed on us. But our goal was never to replace one form of control with another. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of various delegates. Some, like the Tholians, still glared with hostility. Others, like the Meridians, showed curious interest. The fundamental mistake of the old council, Morgan continued, was believing that suppression creates security. They thought by keeping others down, they stayed safe themselves. Instead, suppression only breeds innovation and resistance. The Quarian counselor, one of the first majors to seek peaceful talks with humans, spoke up. "We acknowledge errors in judgment were made. The question now is, what does humanity want from this summit?" Morgan smiled. "A new beginning. We propose forming a galactic cooperative where technological advancement is shared, not hoarded. Where trade benefits all worlds, not just the established powers. Where each species is judged by their actions, not by how long they've been traveling among the stars." Over the next several days, representatives from Earth and the former minor species outlined their vision. The Phoenix Network would be open to all peaceful species. Trade routes would no longer be controlled by the majors. Scientific knowledge would be shared more freely. Of course, the former majors had concerns. If all species have access to advanced technology, what prevents its misuse? Asked the Neff counselor, a tall being with silvery skin. Captain Alan Parker, who stood near Morgan as Earth's military representative, answered, "The same thing that prevented humans from destroying Tholian ships when we could have. Values, principles, the understanding that power brings responsibility." The Lasari counselor waved his tentacles skeptically. "Pretty words, but what practical safeguards will exist?" Admiral Linda Hayes stepped forward. She had arrived at the summit after overseeing the defense of Earth. "A joint, peacekeeping force, with ships from all member worlds, shared monitoring systems, mutual defense agreements. We've prepared detailed proposals for all these measures." Slowly, day by day, a new framework for galactic governance took shape. Most of the former miners eagerly supported it. Among the former majors, the Meridians and Neff were the first to agree to the new terms. The Quarians and Lasari followed. After gaining certain concessions about cultural protections, the Tholians stubbornly refused to participate at first. But after seeing most of the galaxy aligning with the new cooperative, they reluctantly sent representatives to the talks. The Xandoth, traditional allies of the Tholians, did the same. The Vexari were the last to agree to the new terms. High Counselor Zhivik had been the strongest voice against human advancement for decades. Now he found himself forced to accept a reality he had tried to prevent. After the final vote approving the new Galactic Cooperative Charter, Zhivik approached Morgan in a quiet corner of the station. "You had these capabilities all along," he said, his 4 eyes studying Morgan carefully. "Your Phoenix network, your shield technology, your weapons that disable without destroying. You could have conquered us. Why didn't you?" Morgan smiled. Slightly. "That's precisely why you wanted to keep us contained, isn't it? Because you assumed we would be like you, using power to dominate. But humans don't want to rule the galaxy. We just want our rightful place in it." Zhivik was silent for a moment. Perhaps we misjudged your species. And perhaps we can learn from each other now," Morgan suggested. Back on the main observation deck of the Unity station, Captain Parker and Lieutenant Wells watched stars slowly spin past the large windows. "Do you think they've genuinely accepted the new reality?" Wells asked. "Or are they just biding their time, waiting for a chance to regain control?" Parker considered the question. "Some of them probably are just waiting. Old habits and old power aren't given up easily." "Then all of this might just be temporary," Wells said with concern. "I don't think so," Parker replied. "The minor species have tasted freedom and equality. They won't go back willingly to the old system." And more importantly, I think many of the former majors are beginning to see the benefits of cooperation. He gestured toward another part of the deck, where representatives from several species were gathered around a Quarian scientist. The Quarian was explaining something about their advanced agricultural techniques, while a human engineer was showing how Phoenix technology could help improve crop distribution. That never would have happened under the old council, Parker said. Knowledge was hoarded, not shared. Wells nodded. I suppose you're right. So what happens now? Now the real work begins, Parker said. Building something new is always harder than tearing something old down. 1 month later, Dr. Peter Morgan stood in his office on Earth, looking out at the busy spaceport. Ships from a dozen different worlds were coming and going freely. Among them was a Vexari research vessel, visiting Earth for the first time in over a century. Morgan's communication screen lit up with an incoming message from Olivia Carter, who was now serving as Earth's ambassador to the cooperative. Peter, you won't believe this, she said excitedly when her face appeared. The Vexari have just proposed a joint research project with us. They want to combine their biotechnology with our Phoenix principles. Morgan smiled. That is progress. What about the Tholians? Carter's expression became more serious. Still keeping mostly to themselves, but they're respecting the new trade agreements and they haven't caused any trouble. They will adapt eventually, Morgan said. They all will. After the call ended, Morgan returned to the window. A Phoenix portal opened in the sky above the spaceport, and a ship from the Ardani world emerged. Just 2 years ago, such a sight would have been impossible under Council restrictions. Admiral Hayes had been right. All those years ago when they first planned Project Phoenix, the Council majors had made their decision to keep humanity down. And now they were living with the consequences of that mistake. As Morgan watched the ships coming and going freely, he thought about what Parker had said to High Counselor Zivik at the end of the summit. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our resilience, Parker had told the Vexari leader. It's that when pushed to the wall, we don't just fight back. We completely change the rules of the game. Out in the darkness of space, another Phoenix relay activated, opening yet another doorway to a future the Galactic Council majors had never seen coming, one they would very much regret trying to prevent. The end.